This is AI Command App Media Lens. Every day, the same stories get told differently depending on who's telling them. Here are today's top stories and what happens when you read them side by side. Story 1. The Virginia Supreme Court today struck down a Democratic-led congressional redistricting effort. The decision is widely seen as a major boost to Republican efforts to build a structural advantage through redistricting heading into the next election cycle. Watch how three outlets covered the same ruling. The New York Times led with the headline, "Four Takeaways from the Virginia Supreme Court Gerrymandering Decision." Analytical, neutral framing presented as a primer for engaged readers. The Hill ran two pieces in parallel. One led with President Trump's reaction, quote, "Huge win for the Republican Party and America." The other led with California Governor Gavin Newsom accusing MAGA Republicans of, quote, "rigging an election." Same court ruling, three different lenses. The Times treated it as a structural political development. The Hill packaged the partisan reactions side by side, letting each side frame the meaning of the decision in their own words. What this tells you, when a story is unambiguously partisan, framing isn't always about hiding bias. Sometimes it's about which voices get the microphone first. The order of quotes is editorial. The headline you click is editorial, and the takeaways you remember tomorrow depend on which one of these three you actually read today. Story 2. The April jobs report dropped this morning. The economy added 115,000 jobs, with hiring described as broadly positive across sectors. Three outlets, three completely different angles. The Wall Street Journal led with U.S. adds 115,000 jobs in April with solid hiring across sectors. A confidence frame. Strong number, strong economy, move along. Yahoo Finance ran a markets policy headline, "Strong U.S. jobs data complicates any Warsh push for lower rates." Same data, but the story is now about Federal Reserve drama and who's losing the rate cut fight. And then a third Yahoo Finance piece reframed it entirely. Tech's K-shaped boom, stocks up, jobs down. Same economy, now it's an inequality story. One report. A confidence frame, a policy frame, and an inequality frame. What this tells you, economic data is almost never just data. It's a Rorschach test. The journal's audience reads solid hiring and feels reassured. Yahoo's policy desk reads it as Fed politics. And the K-shaped framing tells a story about who isn't benefiting. None of these are wrong. They're choices about what matters. The Wall Street Journal's headline was minimal, just the facts. Apple, Intel have reached preliminary chip-making agreement. Yahoo Finance covered the same news as a market story. Intel stock hits fourth straight record high as Apple report fuels chip rally. The Journal told you what happened. Yahoo told you what it means for your portfolio. Notice the source selection too. Both pieces are based on the same WSJ scoop, but Yahoo's framing makes Intel the protagonist, the comeback story. The Journal keeps Apple and Intel on equal footing. That choice, who's the subject of the sentence, quietly shapes which company you walk away thinking won. Story 4. A hantavirus outbreak tied to a cruise ship has health officials tracking exposed passengers. Hantavirus is a rare but sometimes serious illness, typically transmitted through contact with rodent droppings. The New York Times led with experts stress hantavirus risk remains low as officials track cruise ship passengers. Calm, expert grounded. The description note that the virus, quote, does not spread easily between humans. ABC News took a different angle. COVID-19 expert says hantavirus won't be the next pandemic. They brought in Dr. Ashish Jha, the former White House COVID response coordinator, to reassure viewers. Same outbreak. The Times says risk is low. ABC says it's not the next pandemic. These framings sound similar, but they're doing different work. The Times tells you what is. ABC News tells you what it isn't. ABC's choice to frame the story by what it's not, pandemic, reveals an assumption about what their audience is afraid of. Editorial choices about reassurance language tell you what an outlet thinks is on its readers' minds. That's worth noticing. Story 5. Sir David Attenborough, the broadcaster behind decades of nature documentaries, turned 100 today. The BBC is hosting a celebration at the Royal Albert Hall. You'd think a centennial birthday would be a story everyone covers the same way. It's not. PBS NewsHour led with the man, quote, "The man behind the excited but hushed voice of nature programs turns 100, leaning on his television persona, the voice Americans recognize." The New York Times went visual. David Attenborough, a voice of nature, turns 100, pairing the headline with photo essay framing, striking scenes from the making of perhaps the world's most celebrated naturalist. PBS made it about the voice. The Times made it about the images. Even on a feel-good story, every outlet picks an angle. PBS framed Attenborough through his American TV legacy. The Times framed him as a global cultural figure documented through pictures. Both are true. Neither is the whole story. Multiply that small choice across thousands of stories a day, and you start to see how editorial sensibility, not bias, just sensibility, shapes the news you consume. That's today's Media Lens from AI Command App. Same stories, different lenses. If you want to think more clearly about your news, the first step is noticing the choices that go into making it. Not every difference is bias, but every difference is a choice. And every choice tells you something about the outlet, about the audience, and about what they think matters. See you tomorrow.